Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session with your host,
Michael Rearden.
This is something I actually been thinking about probably for like the past 2, 3 weeks because like so many people are struggling with like the economy and there's so much financial constraint and concern. Even like the rich people, they're like I want my money to go further. It's not that they don't have money. It's just that they want their money to do more for them. And the money mindset today is definitely skewed in many aspects of our bringing. There's not much financial literacy taught at a young age, so many adults are playing catch up toward the end of it. So we're going to be talking about all that. Just briefly, can you tell us like a bit of your background, how you got into this work, and then of course how you help people?
Course. So I have been coaching for about 30 years, and I started working with clients one-on-one as a business coach. And I wanted to help them expand their business or start a business, or even if they didn't have a business, be able to actually create more income in their lives. And in the process of doing that, what I found after a couple of months was my clients were making more money, but they were all in the same situation at the end of every month that they were before I started working with them. So if they were making more money, they were still just treading water, or they were behind, or they're making more money and they still have stress and anxiety around money. And I knew that there had to be something more here because it was literally across the board with all of my clients. So I decided to start looking at it, researching it, really diving deep into what's happening here. And what I discovered over the next couple of years was two things. Number one is that we all have what I call a financial thermostat, or a money mindset. Some people can relate to it better that way. I prefer using the financial thermostat because we all know what a thermostat is. It regulates something. And then the second thing that I discovered was how to reset that financial thermostat so that we can earn more, we can keep more, we can have a better experience around money, and ultimately have a better relationship with money and ourselves and the people around us. So I started implementing that with my clients. I developed the training over several years. And ever since, I'd say about the last 25 years, I have been focused on money mindset.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a path to walk on now. We can either jump straight into how we help people adjust that financial thermostat, or we can go into the history of what is the problem in our society with money. So you get to choose either path, whichever one you think is more appropriate to begin.
Well, I think the foundation is our relationship, our kind of default relationship with money, because we do live in a society where talking about money is taboo, where we grow up in an environment, many people like me, where my family never talked about money. We never asked about money. We never talked about how much money we made, or asked somebody how much money they made, or said we didn't understand something about money. It was just not talked about. And so we get older, and we live in a society, especially today with social media, where we see people all over the place who are looking like they're the players, and they're slicking the money and doing all the jetting and all that kind of stuff. And we want to emulate that, but we have no foundation around how to relate to money, how to interact with money, how to leverage money in the best way possible. And so we just kind of like are moving around in the dark and hoping that it works out. And ultimately it doesn't. What's happening is we're being run by very, very old conversations from when we were young. And those are the things that are in the background. We don't notice it. It's kind of like the operating system of our computer. We don't notice what's going on until suddenly something isn't working. And generally, we end up blaming ourselves, or we blame society or some other outside experience. We don't look at, oh, maybe there's something in my personal operating system or my money mindset that's impacting my ability to get where I want to get. And so that leads me to the second part, which is the also part of your original conversation or question, is how do we reset our financial thermostats? So before I jump into that, let me just check, Michael. Did that answer your question for the first part of it? I want to make sure I
I,
covered
I
it well
mean,
enough.
I mean, I actually I want to hold off on the thermostat a little bit now because I want to get into the proper conversation that we should be having with our youth now because it was one of the aspects of where, we're not having those conversations. So what would be a conversation that a parent could have, a grandma, grandpa, some type of guardian perhaps? Because if we look back maybe, 20, 30 years ago, the saying money doesn't grow on trees was very big for kids. The kids has eyes everywhere. They want gum and the Skittles when they're going into checkout. There was no self checkout. So, like, they're always looking for things that, they wanted to give to the person. And then it's almost like you feel guilty because you have to say no in front of this person. And then it's like, oh, I'm such a bad parent. Versus the self checkout is a lot better in the sense of no one's really looking at me. So I can tell my kid no all I want. We don't have that same mindset of money doesn't grow on trees. Like parents don't tell their kids that anymore. It creates limits, but there's other ways that we can do it. And I don't even think the way that parents are doing it now is, effective because they're basically saying, okay, you have this much money in your account or whatever. So like the kid has no idea of how much money they have, and their parent basically is in charge of their money, and so the kid is just spending money, but they don't necessarily see the tangible bills and see it leaving from their hands. So that's another problem. But, like in your experience, in your workings, what do you think would be the best way to approach that?
This is great. And there are a couple of different aspects to the question that you're asking. So, the first part of it is we need to look at ourselves and what are the negative conversations that we have around money. Money doesn't grow on trees was a very common thing when I was growing up. And you don't hear it quite as much, but we still hear things like money is the root of all evil. Money is, people who have a lot of money are bad, or all those kinds of things, right? And so we need to look at ourselves and say, what are the negative conversations? What are the negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions that I have around money? And how am I passing those on to my kids? Because that's exactly what happens. They grow up in an environment of money doesn't grow on trees, money is the root of all evil, people who are wealthy are evil, or all those kinds of conversations. And then they grow up with that is the way it is. When in fact, that isn't the way it is. That's just the way it is for us because I have someone that I knew for many, many years. Everywhere he went, money just appeared for this guy. And I was talking to him and I said, I don't understand. Where does that come from? He says, well, when I was a kid, my mom used to at night have me put money in my piggy bank and then I'd go to sleep. And then while I was sleeping, my mom would sneak in and put more money in. And then the next morning we woke up and I'd count it again and I'd see that I had more. And my mom would say, see, your money always grows. Now, his whole world was money always grows around me. Money always shows up around me. And that's the way it was for him. No different from somebody who says money doesn't grow on trees or be careful, you can't afford that because whatever those negative conversations are, we can shift that context. We can shift that mindset and suddenly things do start to show up. Money does start to show up. We all know people like that, where if they were to trip over a bucket, the bucket would be full of money and they would have, I don't know, some kind of lawsuit where they'd get even more money from it. Like they just seem to fall into money. And then we know other people who everywhere they go, it's always a hardship. It's always a problem. Money's always an issue. It has nothing to do with money or society. It has to do with our own internal financial thermostat setting. Because at the end of the day, our financial thermostats determine how much money we can earn, how much money we can keep, as well as those thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. So we want to first look at what are our negative conversations. Then start to look at what are some positive ways we can interact with our kids around money on a regular basis. That's going to give them a framework for how they're going to interact with money. We can't tell kids that they can have anything they want anytime they want because there are limitations to how much money we have. We can tell them that they can achieve anything they want. They can save for anything they want. That money will flow freely and abundantly to you every single day. And then start to interact with them with money, just like my friend's mom used to do, where they're actually seeing their money. I would get them a very inexpensive jar or something that they love, where they can put their money in every day and see it growing. And then when it's time to move that money into a bank account where it's getting interest, have them go with you. Have them count it out. Have them be part of that experience and take them to the bank so that they create a relationship with the people at the bank, as these are the people who are the trustees of my money while it's in the bank. And here's what happens to your money when it's in the bank: it starts to grow. How does that happen? Share with them about interest and what that looks like. So we want them interacting with money in a positive way. And then to your question about, oh, well, I want this and I want that and I want this, it's really easy to say to them, okay, great. Well, how much money do you have right now? I can get you this because I'm your mom and I want to give you something, but you want these other things, or I'm your dad, right? You can have these other things, but how much money do you have? And suddenly they start relating to it like, oh, I need to save my money up. I need to have money in order to buy the things that I want to buy, not mom and dad just buy me everything. So they start to relate to money in a way that's empowering. They start to think about it from, whoa, I may not want to just blow this on some gum or this because I want something better than that. So I'm going to start saving it over time. And then every time they purchase something, celebrate it, appreciate what that money provided for them, so that they have a much greater appreciation for money as well as the thing that they acquired. And then they also get really clear about what money can and cannot provide in our lives.
Spot on. You might think that money is the problem when we're younger because we're like, oh, we don't have enough money. I can't buy my PlayStation. I can't buy my Xbox. And what it does is, it creates a broken adult later on because now they're trying to get all of these materialistic things because they think that's going to bring them happiness. And we were young, we would go out, play, run, use our imagination. Today, most of the kids are inside, and we have multiple parks where I live. We have a huge park over in Round Rock, Old Settlers, is right by the Dell Diamond baseball field, and a huge sport complex. And every weekend, there's so many parents there. But it's funny because Round Rock has some of the best schools in the whole entire nation. And I know there's way more kids than that, So when I go there and I see maybe a couple hundred kids, probably like school or, like a couple of classes from a school, I'm thinking like, where is everyone else? This park should be packed. And I understand, there's certain events sometimes they have soccer. Typically, the parents are all taking their kids to soccer or baseball or something like that. But when it comes to free play and just being kids, it's like you don't have to worry about that. It's like we're giving kids adult problems and we don't necessarily even realize that. And then as we become adults and we now have adult problems with money, it's like, well, I'm just not equipped for that. And most people are not equipped to handle many things. Like we can even go basic. Let's go bare bone basic. Someone was stranded a desert island. Could they survive? They don't know how to fish. They don't know how to start a fire. It's like we are losing our roots. And the more, I guess you can say we go away from our roots, it's more difficult to find connection. And, social media, all of these things, it might be really good, but we're living in the most disconnected time. And I'm just going to say this because I have been talking about this book, and it's called The Price of Privilege. A wonderful book. I encourage every parent to read this book because it talks about how affluent parents are able to buy all of their kids everything, and their kids are growing up with all of this money, and there's no concerns for money. And basically, they're talking about how by adolescence age, 11, 12, 13, around there, how the kids are unhappy and disconnected. And you would think like, since I have all of this money, since I'm doing responsibility to make sure that they're well taken care of, we get away from our roots. And I I think money is a tool, not so much of a means to an end. Like if I have money, I'm going to be happy. Money might be able to take me on a vacation. It's going to be able to be a trade to get me the food. I mean, I grow my own food too. We are living in a very different time. So the thermostat many people are living in is almost corrupted. So think of like a Google thermostat or a Nest thermostat. Is all electronic now. Like even my thermostat is a Honeywell one. So we don't live with those old thermostats where you had to like kind of move the
The
dial
dial.
left and right. We are living in an age of technology, but that technology can sometimes be corrupted. It can be skewed. And now we have to look at that thermostat to see if there's some type of malware, if there's some type of spam in there that's, you know, stopping us from really seeing the true picture, because we can look at the thermostat, it says 74, but there could be like a malfunction in the technology. So we have to look deeper. We have to get to the roots. So as we are going now, let's look at how do we adjust that financial thermostat?
You mentioned something really important before I get into that, because I want to, you're at the crux of, I think, what we're dealing with as a society, because we were talking about being disengaged from each other because we've got social media, because we've got so much technology. We're we're experiencing a breakdown in our ability to relate to each other in a civilized way. If we don't like something, we just shut off or block them. We just delete them or block them. That's it. But when we're face to face with someone and we're having a disagreement, we can't just block them, or we can't, and so we end up having these real issues, and we can see it across society. Well, the same is true for money. We are so distant from our money. We're so divorced from actually interacting with cash, because we can tap pay for something on our phone. We can just take our credit out and tap pay. Even in Vegas, which is where I live, you can go into a slot machine and you can put in a ticket from a previous play and never even see money, right? So we're so divorced from our relationship to money, and it's damaging our ability to relate to money. And I always like to say, if we look at relating to money in the same way that we would look at relating to a significant other, we will start to see a whole new way of relating to money. So if you were with your significant other and you said, well, you need to be here when I want you, I have to have enough of you to get whatever I want. I want to show you off to everybody. And then when I don't need you, I'm just going to completely ignore you. I'm not even going to think about you. Well, that relationship is not going to last very long. But that's the way we relate to money on a regular basis. We demand that it's there when we want it. We're upset when it's not. And then when we get something with it, we just ignore it. We just don't pay any attention to it. So shifting that relationship is really important. Now, let's take a look at the ways to shift our or reset our financial thermostat. Number one is we have to see what our thermostat setting is right now. And that's really easy, the easiest part. Just look around at how things are. Are you somebody who can earn lots of money, but you just can't hold on to it? It just disappears. It's always, where'd my money go? How many people of how many of your viewers are thinking that, God, I just don't know where my money goes every single month? Well, that's a setting of your financial thermostat. Another setting is you're able to make lots of money. You're able to keep lots of money, but you're miserable. You're just miserable. Every single day you're worried about money. Every single day you're worried about X, Y, and Z happening. You go on a great vacation and it's just a disaster, right? That's another setting. Another one is you can't make more money. You keep trying. You keep doing everything you want or know to make more money. You can't break through that ceiling. Those are all signs of what your financial thermostat setting is. And until we reset it, we're never going to be able to break through that. It's the reason we see so many lotto winners go broke within the first 5 years. I think it's between 70 and 80%. We see major league players, professional football players go bankrupt after making hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases shortly after they retire. Why is this? Their financial thermostats were not set up to manage that kind of money. And so all this money comes in, and that thermostat kicks in and it just starts disappearing money, disappearing money, disappearing money. Kind of like the thermostat on the wall is set at 72 and all this hot air comes in. Well, the AC kicks on and it cools that room back down. So that's how to look and see what your setting is. Now, how do we reset it? There are many ways to do this, but the first thing that you can do is look at how money flows. So money is a currency. And as a currency, it flows like a current, like water or air or electricity. However, it has a unique way in which it flows. And that unique way is that it flows in a circle. So it flows to us, through us, and then away from us, and then back around to us, through us, and away from us. And then there's this reservoir on the side that we get to keep. So that's how money flows. It's this energy that flows in a circle We intersect that circle, and then there's a reservoir on the side that we get to keep. Now, because money flows in this circle, blocks anywhere in that flow are blocks everywhere in the flow. So a block in the flow of money coming to you stops money flowing away from you, which ultimately stops money flowing back around to you. And at the end of the day, that reservoir on the side that we get to keep. And the same thing is true for money flowing away from us. So what do blocks in the flow of money coming to us look like? Well, we talked about some of them earlier on. Look like money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. It can look like I hate my boss or I hate the wealthy. Any one of those things are all going to be blocks in the flow of money coming to you. So if you hate the wealthy, you are basically crippling yourself to ever becoming wealthy. Now, some people may say, well, I don't want to be that wealthy. The universe doesn't distinguish between that wealthy or this wealthy. If I give you a penny, you are wealthier than you were before I gave you the penny. And that means any kind of wealth is now blocked. You are cutting yourself off with that block. Then the blocks in the flow of money going away from you are things like, I hate paying my bills on time. I never pay my bills on time. I want to hold on to that money. I don't pay people on time. I don't want to pay them on time. I don't want to pay them at all because they've done the work, but I want to hold on to that money as long as possible. Hating to pay your taxes, hating to make your payroll if you're a business owner, those kinds of things. These are all blocks in the flow of money going away from us. So what we want to do is we want to clear those blocks. And there's a very, very simple process that we do to clear these blocks. Number one, you have to acknowledge it. You have to notice the block and you have to acknowledge it. Money is the root of all evil. Yes, I've had that conversation for 35 years. I totally get it. That's my conversation. I can own that I have that conversation. That takes the power of that conversation away. Then what we do is we let it go. We actually give it up. And we can say, whether you believe in God or the universe or the trees outside or nothing at all, I give that conversation up. I turn it over and surrender it into the care of blah, 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 blah. And it is no longer mine. It no longer has dominion over me. It no longer has power over me. I let go of that conversation. And you'll feel at some point as you're doing that, and you have to do that out loud. You cannot do it in your head. You got to do this out loud. You'll feel a sense of relief or release, like, wow, I could actually feel that kind of lightening up, right? And in that moment, the third step is create what money is for you right now. As a created conversation, money flows to me abundantly and freely every single day. That's just one example. Whatever it is for you, and you always want it in the positive, not in the negative. Sometimes people will say, I don't want to stress about money anymore. Well, when we declare that, what we're declaring is that we don't want to stress about money anymore, and stress and money become the focus of our conversation, and you're just going to have more stress around money. So you want it always in the positive. I am free and easy around money. I am confident whenever I interact with money. And you make that declaration and you get present to that declaration. And anytime that old conversation shows up again, and it will, because it's part of our brain function, it is these neural pathways that have been firing and wiring together for decades and decades. It's not going away, but it will get quieter and quieter and quieter and less frequent over time. But every time it shows up, same thing. There's that old conversation. I can own that. I'm letting it go. And here's who I am with money, or what money is for me in my life.
I was thinking about how people, they are not clear in what they want their money to do, for example, or what they want from money. So people might say, oh, I need more money. I want more money. But it's just a very vague way of thinking of, well, how much more money do you need? And as you said, you can give someone a penny. Yes, now they have more money and they weren't clear in what they wanted. There's some factors that they would have to look at, right? They would have to look at how much money they want to spend, how much money they want to keep, maybe in that reservoir. And then from there, it's like, okay, this is how much more money I have to make. And then they have to figure out, how can I get that money, right? Do I have to start another business? Do I have to work more hours, trade time for money? I mean, there's ways that people can earn money. Some ways are better than others, of course. And it just seems like people at some point they hit like a limit in their mind. They say, I just don't have any more time. You get this a lot with single moms. They are so stressed, they're overwhelmed, they have to take care of the kid, children, they have to make ends meet, pay the bills and everything. And it's like they don't have any time. So typically, oftentimes, they sacrifice their health because they're trying to get more time in their day to do the things and they are barely breaking even. And one of the things they say is just like, need some more money. And not being clear is one of the factors that's stopping them from getting more money because it's like, well, how much do you need? Have you, looked at the settings and have you been saying, okay, this is where I'm at. Okay, I don't have any money in the reservoir anymore, or something along those lines. People just kind of, are super vague about money. Do you find that if people can be more deliberate in exactly what they want with money, that they're going to get it more readily? Or is it something that it just depends on the personality of the person, like if they're a growth minded person versus a fixed minded person?
Yeah, we can't hit a target that we don't know exists. We just can't. And this is where many people are struggling, just like you said. It's twofold. One is most people have no idea how much money they spend every month and on what. They just have no idea. And that's one of the first things I have people I work with do is account for every penny that they spend over the course of a month or two so that they can really get clear about where their money's going. And 99% of the people I work with are shocked when they get clear about where they're spending their money because they're not thinking about it. And I'm not saying that they're being irresponsible or anything like that. All I'm saying is they have no idea where their money's going. And so they have no choice in the matter. They're just leaving it up to the way it's been. And suddenly they start realizing, whoa, I bought this streaming and I've been paying for it and I never even use it. Or I go to Starbucks 6 times a week and I don't even need to anymore. They have all these different things that they start to see that now empowers them to make a choice. Where do I want to flow that money? Do I want to keep going to Starbucks? Great. Then keep going to Starbucks, but know that that's where you're flowing your money rather than it being by default. And then the second thing is, how much money do you want for each one of those things? What are your targets? And you can create a target for all of them. If you, want to go on vacation every year, you should create a target for how much money you want to save for vacation every year. You should create a target for how much money you need for your mortgage or your rent, your insurance, health insurance, property insurance, car insurance, gas, groceries. Every single one of those items should have a target. And you should shoot for hitting that target every single month. And we don't change the target every month. Even if we start making more money, we don't change the target because a moving target is much harder to hit. If I set the target at this, look, I can tell you exactly what I'm going to spend on groceries every single month. It's just easy. Same thing with gas. Same thing with all the things in my life. I'm very, very clear about what it is I'm spending and why. And that gives me the power to know how much money I need to bring in. And when I'm in that world, then I'm empowered on all levels. I know how much I have to work. I'm not trading hours for dollars. I am actually living in a world of prosperity where I know I'm bringing in this money. And as I'm bringing in this money, it's actually paying for my home. It's paying for my car. It's paying for that vacation I'm going on later on in the year. And all of these things are really amazing things that source me. Whereas a lot of people, they resent the money that they're spending. I hate writing the rent check every month. That's a block in the flow of money going away from us. And that's, again, going to pinch you off from being able to tap into the unlimited amount of money that's flowing in our world. So create targets for every single area. And you want to then look at managing the target within your means. So we don't want to just say, oh, I want to make $1 million a year. And I want to, that's kind of so far out of the realm of what you're dealing with. So you want to look at what are the basics right now that you need. You got your home, your car, all of those things. You got kids, daycare, things like that. Get that sorted and then look and see, are there adjustments that you can make? Then look at how much money do I bring in every month? And then look at the difference. Most of my clients see, whoa, I'm spending way more money than I'm bringing in. No wonder my credit card is so high. My credit card debt is so high. Then what they start to do is they start making adjustments on what they're spending. you know what? I'm not going to buy that expensive whatever, that name brand whatever. And I'm going to go for something a little bit less so that I can kind of bring even, at least breaking even every single month, where I'm not spending more than I'm making. And that again moves us from what I call being behind the flow of money, which is we're behind every month, we're behind every month, we're behind every month, to being in the flow of money, which is kind of like being at the top of the wave when you're surfing, right? And suddenly there's a little bit of momentum. It's not quite pushing you, but you're no longer struggling to catch up. To then moving to being in front of the flow, which is that momentum of the wave pushing you forward, all that money pushing you forward. Most people live behind the flow. They're trying to catch the flow. Once they get into the second, which is being in the flow, and then ultimately the third, life shifts and suddenly money starts to show up everywhere. But start with those targets, really important, and then bring into equilibrium what you're spending and what you're making. So at least you're on target. Then you can look at in what would you do if more money came in? What would you do with that money? Be responsible for what you would do with that money. A lot of the people I speak to, they go, oh, if I give you $1 million, what would you do? I'd buy a new house. I'd go on vacation. I'd buy my mom and dad a house. I'd give money to all my friends. All they're doing is disappearing money. And at the end of the day, they're going to have no money. Versus, what can I do to elevate that money? I just met the perfect person in my life. I'm taking it back to that relationship conversation, right? I just met the perfect person. How can I just use them up? Or how can I elevate this and bring this relationship to the next level? How can I make it better every single day? Right? That's the conversation we want to be having around money. And when you're clear about that, suddenly you've got all these ideas like, whoa, I want this, and this is what I want to save for, and this is what I want. I'm going to get this money to make more money for me in this way. I'm going to invest in that. Suddenly money starts to show up to fulfill on those targets that you're creating because you're creating them from a purer place.
Awful. I'm
You
just
get
thinking,
me on conversation. I'm just going off here. I'm sorry. I'm talking a
oh, that
lot, but
was
these are
perfect.
such great conversations. I love having them.
That was perfect because what I do, like when we are, like having a conversation, is I'll write down directions. For example, if I'm like, oh, that'll be a good talking point if the guest doesn't talk about it, and you were just hitting it, hitting it, hitting it. And so I was like, this is wonderful. So I typically don't interrupt people when they're talking. So you can come on the podcast, you could talk for the whole hour if you want, and I'll say, hey, this is your episode. We are here to learn. We are here to change ourselves little by little, right? And I was thinking, like financial health is very similar to our physical health because let's say you were eating cheeseburgers for the past 3 years and you gained some weight eating all those cheeseburgers, and maybe you had some tacos and pizzas and sodas, like all the unhealthy things, but they may, they taste good maybe, right? So you might say, well, finally, I'm going to lose some weight. You have all of that bad weight debt on you. Guess what? You're not going to get rid of it in one day, in 1 week, maybe even a year, right? You have to develop something, a system, a process to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose maybe a pound a week, maybe 4 pounds a month, whatever it be. Give yourself a goal and then you work toward that. And for the people who are suffering from crippling credit card debt or student loans, whatever it be, it's the same process, right? How long did it take you to build that? It might have taken you a very long time unless you like that designer stuff. And maybe in 1 month you found your credit card bill to be $100,000. So, definitely if you're in that situation, you want to stop immediately versus like the people who are just doing it and they don't necessarily know because it's so little. It's like a drip. People
Right.
don't necessarily worry about like a leak in the ceiling until it becomes a flood. So if you're in that flood, if you are in that overwhelm of what's happening in your life, I encourage you to look at your situation and then take those steps to healing and recovering, if you want to call it that. Like I said, it's not so much of in one day or in one episode, everything is going to magically fix. Like you have to give yourself the mindset that I am going to work on this. I am going to adjust. I am going to change the settings. And from there, that's when you start to see some progress. And I understand people want instant now, like Amazon, same day shipping. Give it to me, baby. But we need to learn patience once more. We need to understand that things take time. If you plant a seed in the soil, it's going to take time, but yet we can just go to the grocery store and buy the tomato or buy the pepper or whatever, right? So we have to get back to, our roots, as I said earlier, and get back to, where we can be comfortable with our lifestyle. If you want to live in a luxurious type of lifestyle, sure, we have to elevate our lifestyle too, our income. That's not for everybody. Now, so many people who have plenty of money, but they don't want to spend it. And then there's people who don't have any money and they want to spend all of it. Two spectrums there. And I have found that if you are in a rough spot in your life, it's best to get someone to help you along the way, be it a coach, be it an advisor, be it a mentor, someone to hold you accountable. Because if you are just, saying, I'm going to do this by myself, guess what? It's going to be just like New Year's resolutions. You're going to start off strong, and somewhere down the line, you're going to want more than what you need again. And you're going to find yourself in that habitual loop, financial constraint. So, Pericles, as we begin to wrap up, I would love to get some final words from you. You can talk on that last point if you would like. And then also, please tell the audience where they can find you.
Sure. So I think the most important aspect of because some of the things you said were so great. We live in a society where everybody wants to look like they have wealth, and they're willing to go into debt just to look like they have wealth, rather than actually having the wealth and not caring what other people think about them. And until we make that shift, you're not going to be able to create wealth. If you look at some of the wealthiest people in the world, you notice how they dress. They're not dressing to impress. They don't care what other people think. All they care about is what they're working on, what they're creating, what they're building in their lives. So just like I, and this is not to be disparaging in any way, but this is somebody who's got an eating disorder, right? And they eat too much. At some point, they have to stop and say, okay, I have to stop eating. If you overspend, you have to stop and say, I'm overspending and I can no longer do this. I need to live within my means, right? And that's where you start to look at, okay, how much am I bringing in? And I need to bring down what I'm spending to match that. And then creating a debt reduction plan, a strategy that will allow you to pay down that debt. And then it's going to be resisting the temptation. It's like, you know what? I'm on a diet. I gotta walk by the pastry store. I gotta walk by the candy store. I cannot go in. Me especially, I cannot trust myself. I will go crazy, right? And it's the same thing around money. Stop going places where you're tempted to spend a lot of money and resist the temptation to impress your friends. I'm just going to pay for everybody tonight. No, you're not. You're just going to pay for yourself, right? You're going to limit the number of times you go out so that you can start living within your means. And once you find that equilibrium, then you're going to be able to find other ways to express yourself, other ways to have joy and happiness in your life, specifically when you start to notice that you're building wealth rather than creating debt. And then the last part, how they can find me in two ways. They can go to my either website, they go to the same place, periclesrellas.com, or resetyourfinancialthermostat.com, has all the information. And I have a free masterclass. At the very front page, it says join my free masterclass. It's absolutely free. Enter your email address. And it is the 4 keys to resetting your financial thermostat. I take you through all the details of it, and everything's included in that masterclass for you to be able to reset your financial thermostat and create the kind of wealth that you want.
And I encourage everyone to join that masterclass. For example, if you have a sister or brother, whoever that might not be too good with money, send that their way too, because it's not so much of me fix just me, like let me fix what's going on around me, because many people don't necessarily realize that you have people around you doing the wrong things. There's an attraction for you to do that wrong thing also. They say that if you are around the wrong company, then the company that you're around is going to turn you wrong also. So, when we're trying to elevate ourselves, whether it be financial literacy or just our financial health and well-being, we should be surrounding ourselves with people who are trying to also recover and trying to get that growth mindset. Don't do it by yourself. So don't feel like I got to go into this master class by myself and I don't know anybody. No. Bring a friend, right? Bring a family. Because from there, then that's when you are going to be changing the generations of trauma and struggle. All of this is because we have not been told, or we might have just been led astray, because it's very easy to just kind of go on cruise control in life. And then all of a sudden you find all this stuff in your Amazon cart and you wonder, like, how did this even happen? You have to, take a step back and ask yourself, what do I truly need in life versus what do I want? Because we live in a world of want and desire, but there's not much that you truly need. And most people, they just want happiness. Do you need happiness? Maybe, right? So, that's like another conversation for another day. But I encourage everyone to do the work, to look at their finances, to get back to the places that is going to make them feel comfortable and also empowered, because debt could be an anchor and it stops you from so much more growth in your life. So I do want to thank you, Pericles, for coming on, talking about your work, and just having a great conversation with us today.
Michael, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.